As I sort of approached the scene, the first thing I saw was a bike on its side, and I'd seen a cyclist ahead of me much earlier, so I thought he was just having a rest. As I got a little bit closer, a very young child stumbled out onto the road, and at first I thought she was actually just playing with a sibling, because she sort of looked from a distance like she was sort of falling over, larking about like a child would. However, as I approached her, it was obvious that she was quite badly injured and there was a lot of blood on her. And as I got even closer, I then saw the car with its engine revving and wheels spinning. So it became evident, well, it seemed like at that moment in time there'd been a terrible car accident. So it was a case of doing that first attenders type of activities, which primarily resulted in me paying some attention to the girl first. She was prone on the road, moaning, sort of semi-conscious, and she was lying in a position that was in front of this car with its wheels spinning. So my immediate thought was she needed to be moved in case the car lurched forward and should run her over or anything. So I sort of gently attended to her and moved her into a position clear of where the vehicle could possibly go, clear of the road. She was very severely injured because she was in and out of consciousness. In fact, after a few minutes when I was doing other things and just glanced back at her, she'd become unconscious. And she had quite a lot of blood and some very obvious, quite bad head injuries. So it seemed that the best thing to be done for her in the moment was, if she was breathing well enough, and just to put her into, I think people commonly call a recovery position, and I sort of checked that she wasn't profusely bleeding or anything that needed to be stopped, and then moved on to the other people. At first I thought there's been a terrible accident between a cyclist and a car, because there was a cyclist on the ground more or less in front of the car. But there were the things that didn't quite match, because the cyclist's bike wasn't beside him. He wasn't grazed like you'd think you'd see a cyclist with. Because, being a cyclist, I've fallen off my bike and got what they call road rash in the past, and you'd sort of expect to see that type of injury. So things didn't quite work. So as the minutes went on, I suddenly started to change my opinion about whether it was a car accident or something else. It seemed to me like he was probably dead. I couldn't feel a pulse, and the most obvious thing was the totally inanimate body. So I went round to the driver's side, and as I needed to break the window to get in, but the window was already star-crazed anyway, and I noticed there were some holes, and I was starting to think, is that a bullet hole, as I was breaking the window? And it became fairly evident that the injuries of the people inside didn't match what one would think people would be like from a car accident in a car park. And then I moved around to the other side, looked into the rear, and I've never seen people who've been shot before, for real, more the Hollywood stuff, but actually it seemed to me just like a Hollywood scene. And if someone had said cut and everybody got up and walked away, that would have been it. But unfortunately it was real life. Well, if you've seen sort of CSI Miami, it was pretty much what you would imagine a set from CSI Miami would be like. There was a lot of blood and heads with bullet holes in them. It became quite obvious now, taking stock, that it was a gun crime. Now I was getting a little bit anxious, because I thought maybe there's just some crazy person in the woods, because the whole area is wooded. It's just a car park in a wooded area, and I then started scanning the woods to see whether there was some nutter or who knows what with a gun, and I was going to be the next person shot. Was it some sort of hunter with a high-powered rifle shooting from a distance, or what? So, having sort of done a quick look around and there was no immediate need to run away, I thought, right, pull out my mobile phone, try and call the rescue services. And of all the moments in the world to have no signal on your mobile phone, that was it. I was then faced with a bit of a dilemma about what to do with the young girl, because one choice was to leave her and the other choice was to take her with me. She was very light, so I could have done a sort of fireman's lift and taken her down on my bike. But she had a lot of injuries, and it seems from the very low level of medical training that I've had over the years that if there's a risk of internal bleeding and wounds, things like that, that sort of dragging her like a rag doll over my shoulder might have perhaps killed her. So the prudent decision really was just to leave her in the recovery position and then go for help on my bike as fast as I could.